Hello and welcome to the Tucson Bitcoin podcast. Today I have on Brian Harrington, and we had an awesome conversation about the Lightning Network, about BTCPay server that allows businesses to accept Bitcoin. We talked about all sorts of different things. One of the things I really like about Brian is that he is a big advocate for getting Bitcoiners together at meetups, and I was definitely inspired talking to him earlier in the month about that, about what they're doing out in Orange County. And before the conversation, we talked about the possibilities of how we could really get the Southwest organized around Bitcoin and building cool things, supporting small businesses, and just giving really good education, getting people together at meetups. And it's just so cool. Like, in this conversation, he presented ideas to me that I had never thought about before and probably would have never thought about. And I think that's one of the benefits of getting Bitcoiners together, in local communities, because we know what the issues are and we have a tool to address them in Bitcoin. So anyways, I'm having a Bitcoin meetup here in Tucson at the last Saturday of the month. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me at my email, tucsonbitcoin@protonmail, or just go over to the meetup website and search for it, Tucson Bitcoin Meetup. And I'm really excited. It's going to be the first Bitcoin only meetup here in Tucson. Got some cool people there. It's going to start out on Zoom, and as soon as we find a location, we'll be doing it in person. And I'm just beyond thrilled to get people together in Tucson and be talking about a solution instead of doing whatever else. And hope you enjoy this conversation. Yeah, why do you see Bitcoin as a revolution? Like, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so Bitcoin, so I came out of politics. Like I was student body president in my high school. And then I did it in college. And then even after I graduated college, I was working on these county supervisor campaigns, and I would work on congressional campaigns. And I had this and then you kind of lose your naivety as you get deeper and deeper into that game. And you realize that, hey, the incentives of elected leaders change once they're in office. And that happens across the board. We can talk about it at the city council level, the congressional level, the federal level. And we all know this. We all inherently know this. But as a young person, it's still really enticing to be like, oh my God, I'm the legislative assistant to the supervisor. And that feels good. It feels good. And you get invited to the parties and you hand out the certificates and you congratulate, the businesses for opening, and you talk about to really important people, and people want to become your friend so that they can become the friend of that's enticing and that's addicting. And so I was in that. I was steeped in that. And I would throw these coffee meetings, because basically what happens when you're campaigning for city council or whatever, you throw backyard coffee meetings, and you get together 10, 12 people, and you tell them, what you see, we can make improvements in the city. And so hanging out at all these Bitcoin meetups just became, to me, like a better form of that, because I can go to bat for Bitcoin 100% of the time. And no matter who I had worked for, there was still that 5, 10, 15, 25% of the time where these people would make different decisions than I would personally make, or their incentives would be different. And so that's why I kind of see the grassroots comparison between old world political campaigning and Bitcoin meetups and grassroots adoption and just talking about that. And the other reason why I see it as a meetup is because as a revolution, is because it really does. It makes me feel like the way that the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party was planned in pubs of people saying, I don't think this is fair. I don't, and 2020, dude, I don't appreciate the way that businesses were treated and individuals. I don't appreciate just at a very foundational level, I don't appreciate the way we're being treated by rulers and people above us. And the only way that I can see to peacefully remove their power to continue harming people is to take away their ability to print more money, because these lockdowns would not be able to be financed on a Bitcoin standard. The only way you're able to continue paying bureaucrats and paying people to enforce lockdowns is with paper money. And so that's how I see of all of us just being able to opt into the new thing. And that's, yeah, that's why I see it as a revolution.
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible revolution. I mean, the idea of going from having wealth extracted from you to really being able to preserve your wealth and create value in a much more fair way without, it being essentially stolen, is pretty incredible. I mean, that's a big reason why I got into it, because I had a background in social work and I wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to address issues of like drug addiction and mental health issues and in my community, because I mean it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad in Tucson. It's pretty uh driving down the street, you'll often see somebody overdosed at a bus stop, and just working in the field, just seeing it like firsthand. And I kind of came to the realization, like you with government, is that we don't fix these problems till we fix the money. Because I mean, if people like have no financial stability and there's uh, system incentivizing recklessness and uh, uh, just poor money management, then all the other issues are gonna double. I read that in Safedin's book, and then saw like some pretty hard data on it on WTF happened in 1971. I was like, man, I got to do something about this for these people. But yeah.
I totally agree. Like, fix the money, fix the world is, yeah. I try to tweet that all the time. I love when Marty Bent says it, and I agree. I think it shakes the right people into the right mentality, because again, like, all those things you talk about are all like good-hearted things that you want to do. And my intentions of wanting to be involved in like that world of politics, was good-hearted. But both have, yeah, there's very, the world loves to talk about like systemic problems. That's a real thing. There are very systemic problems throughout the system, and it goes all the way to the very base layer, which is a layer that thankfully more and more people like are waking up to. The what's crazy about Bitcoin also is you can, like, the fixing the systemic problem has never been as well financed as it can be with Bitcoin. That's the crazy thing, is that it aligns like actual financial incentives at a personal level with fixing the problems. Because when you're dealing in anything, there's still extractors and middlemen in politics and in nonprofit work that profit off of no change. They profit off of the status quo. And so that's why, to me, kind of generalizing, but like that's why the like reformers are never as well financed as the protectors of the status quo across anything. But in Bitcoin, that is different. And that's, I think that's why people, just to new people that are listening on the internet, like, that's why you see the level of passion that you do, because this isn't just another, I'm not asking you to vote for another person after you've been scammed by the last three. I'm asking you to completely go back to the drawing board and think about money in a new way, And so in that sense, I hope that it just feels that it should feel and does feel just super radically different to everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that's so demoralizing about government is that it's very disempowering, to put all this faith and trust in another person to fix your problems, versus being able to stand on your own 2 feet and like address issues in your community yourself, where you're actually better suited to do it because you're familiar with it and you uh, have the power to do it. And then, for the government to go and actually make it more difficult for you to be, uh, to really take your power and like wield it for good. Um, it's kind of a awful process. I mean, one of the things that like amazes me is how big politics are in our society today. Like it's all that like anybody can think or talk about, and it should be irrelevant. You know, we should all
Right.
be standing up and saying, how can we fix the problems in our community that we care about? You know, but we're not.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's it's pretty wild. So yeah, so you're a big fan of BTC Pay server. So how did you get involved with that? And um, is there a pretty steep learning curve that you found with it? And how did you get over it?
Yeah. So the BTC Pay server stuff actually fits perfectly in with, the first thing we were talking about of just the freedom aspect of it. Because at the beginning of 2020, look, I'm not a super technical person. Like I am a American Orange County Cash Apper Bitcoiner. Like I'm not a cypherpunk. I'm not any of this like stuff. Just so people know that. Like I'm not like a digital nomad. I'm not any of this stuff. Like I live in a house like here in Orange County, like suburbs, Anaheim. Like, but so all that out of the way, 2020 again made me realize like, dude, what are we doing to these businesses? Like this is not right. And at the same time that like Strike app was coming out and like BTC Pay server has like it's been like the drum has been banged about it on like Twitter and all this stuff. But I finally dove in and started to look at it when a friend asked me, I'm doing my normal thing of talking about Bitcoin and saying, it's better savings technology, all this stuff, like you should get some. And they're like, dude, but how does it help me now? And again, what does like Bitcoin Sunday school tell me to say to them? Well, it lowers your time preference and like in the future it'll like be this or whatever, right? But it was that just didn't fit the conversation I was having because it was a really heartfelt, like middle of the lockdowns, like summer, like, dude, this is cool, but what about right now with like all this stuff that's happening? Like, what about right now? And that's when I was like, dude, Bitcoin, like, what does peer-to-peer business actually mean? What does no middlemen actually mean? Because right now, a bunch of middlemen are saying that restaurants have to do the business on the sidewalk instead of in a building that they pay rent for. And that doesn't make any sense. And so it's like, okay. And that's what made me think like all the tools are available for Bitcoin to work in commerce right now. And none of that negates number go up or the investment case for Bitcoin at all. So I completely reject that like both those two things are competing with each other. And I think they're completely symbiotic. I think they completely work together because if we admit to ourselves and we know that Bitcoin's better money, then why would you ever want to do business in another money? So with all that, then you go down the path of like, okay, what are the main ways to accept Bitcoin? If you Google, hey, how does my coffee shop accept Bitcoin? You're going to most likely land at BitPay or you're going to land at Coinbase Commerce. Okay. The problem with both of those is that they're not Bitcoin only and they're like pretty like corporate, not with the like freedom mission right now. So those two don't work. That's out. And so as far as Bitcoin only solutions, there's like three choices. There's two main ones. It's BTC Pay server or OpenNode. And what happens between those two is the classic tension across the board in Bitcoin. There's always going to be this tension of the like open source, free, sovereign version that you have to learn how to deploy yourself and takes a little bit of time and it's a little rougher around the edges and might feel a little clunky to you, or the more clean, more kind of software as a service, sign up for the cool web app, like looks a little cleaner, but you have to KYC yourself and you have to, go through their little box and then they cash you out, every Monday morning because it's custodial at the beginning. But so those are like the two tensions. And then the third one that's becoming better and better is Breeze Lightning Wallet has a really good point of sale app. So back in 2020, I mainly stuck with learning BTC Pay server, and I'll tell you like the main ways to deploy BTC Pay server. But now what I've realized is, dude, the only technology you need for your business to start accepting Bitcoin is a sticker that says Bitcoin and a wallet. That's it. Like, so if there's business owners out there that are interested in doing this, or even as I kind of like the first inbound is throw up a sticker that says Bitcoin, or if you're a website, just say that you accept Bitcoin because you have to start the conversation somewhere. and then be ready with the wallets that you're going to recommend to people and know how to, because then two conversations are going to happen. You're going to have Bitcoiners walk up to you and they're going to say, why would I pay you in Bitcoin? Like, I want to hold my Bitcoin and pay you in the weaker money, which completely makes sense. And you have to know how to counter that and offer them incentives and get them over that hump. Or normies are going to say, I don't have any Bitcoin. How do I get Bitcoin? Why would I do that? And you have to be willing to talk about both those things. So all of that is why. So I've kind of like, because I realized after setting up BTCPay server for a few businesses, I realized that even that was like, it took more legwork than even that business really needed, like until they get a few transactions under their belt. And so now I just really try to like get people to take action, put up the sticker and like do that. So, but yeah, the hurdles. So the hurdles that I experienced with BTCPay server was that, again, I have no, like the problem with like, there's no way to just, because you actually are running the server. Like BTCPay server includes a full node. It includes a full node and includes all these other tools to do your Lightning channel management and do all those things for you. And so you need, so your choices are, you either own your own server and put it on that, or you have to pick a cloud provider, or now like my node has it, and I'm pretty sure other like out of the box nodes have it. So that's positive. So the number one, and there's also one way that isn't super well known about how, or we just need to tell more people about it, is that there's a cloud provider called Lunanode out of Canada that has a one-click BTCPay server install with no command line. So what you do is you go to Lunanode, you create a cloud account, you create a cloud account with them, and then for $8 a month, they will host your BTCPay server instance for you. And it comes out of the box with Lightning and with on-chain, and then you'll have, the whole dashboard. So definitely the main way I learned how to do it was through that Lunanode one-click install.
Yeah, I used Lunanode, and I'm kind of excited about all the different nodes that you can operate yourself. But yeah, that's kind of a steep learning curve for somebody.
Totally.
I mean, I think like one of the biggest use case, like we're, I think, pretty early to this conversation. I wish it wasn't that way. I wish people could, really see the dangers that is coming for them, especially like when you look at the lockdowns and you look at the way the government arbitrarily enforces like these ridiculous business policies that are just super unfriendly. I mean, I think California is kind of the worst of the worst, even before the lockdowns. But yeah, I mean, one of the biggest use cases I see right now is for like independent content creators and journalists to start accepting Bitcoin because they're getting deplatformed. And,
Yep.
most of the ones that I follow already accept Bitcoin, because the ones that I follow tend to talk about a little bit more controversial topics like what's actually happening in China or conflict journalism that isn't in approved by the mainstream or whatever. So they get it. They really get it. They might be international too and have an international audience, which I think is like a big use case for accepting Bitcoin. But I mean, I think at the big, it all comes back to the idea of like, do you want to take ownership over your life, over your business, over your community, or do you want to let somebody that doesn't care, is completely detached and has like horrible incentives and interests to have control over all of it? And
Totally. Yeah, completely agree. And then, but then also so all of that stuff, even all that rambling about BTCPay server versus OpenNode and versus all that stuff of like, I take people through all of that. What I've now, if I get a new person who like complete normie, business owner, coffee shop, taco shop, whatever, wants to talk about it, I start them off with actually this. I'm like, look, Bitcoin Lightning undercuts credit card fees and eliminates chargebacks, period. Like I can make this make financial sense for your business, period. And then the number one thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to offer an incentive to get people to pay with a different app. So, and here's the reason why. So Bitcoin Lightning is way cheaper than credit card fees. Way, way, way cheaper. It's like the interchange rate like is 0. Okay. And the customer pays the transaction fee instead of you, the business owner, number one. And then number two, because Bitcoin is an asset, like a piece of Bitcoin, a sat of Bitcoin is an asset. It's not a liability. And so I can't, after I pay your coffee shop, I can't call my credit card and say, hey, someone stole my credit card. That wasn't my coffee. And then you have to deal with it and you're out the coffee and you're out the money. That doesn't happen on Bitcoin because the money actually moves. So you would have to physically send the refund. So that's two reasons why it's better for businesses. And then all of this talking and like having the Bitcoin sticker and having your employee at the counter know how to talk about Bitcoin is way more valuable than knowing how to run the most sovereign web server, like open note thing that you want, because that person has to say, hey, for a 5% discount, pay in Bitcoin or pay with the Strike app. You also could there's ways to do this where you don't even have to say the word Bitcoin. You just say 5% discount for paying with the Strike app. And look, you could even say, look, due to the lockdowns, we're like trying to adopt more contactless payment, couch it in whatever language you want to couch it in, or just go right for it and say, look, Bitcoin is better money than dollars. So for that reason, we offer a discount for paying, but still price everything in dollars. So it's like you ring up for your thing. Yeah, they'll be $5.75 for the cold brew. And it's like, hey, but if you pay in Bitcoin, it's $5. And then get people to download Strike app or download Cash app, and they'll just pay your wallet at the thing. And then so after you get that going a few times, then the benefits of adding BTCPay server or adding something else on top of it is so that the employee can't withdraw the Bitcoin. So then you just create this more of like a cash register system where it can only go in, and you as the business owner, have the withdrawals. So, but yeah, I just want to tell people that I agree that we're early, but I also agree that if you're a motivated enough entrepreneur, because even some of these journalists, I love the journalists are doing it. I completely love that they're doing it. But having Bitcoin as one of 5 options, and all these websites push the credit card first, it's still not it requires the entrepreneur or the journalist to switch over for a Bitcoin first mindset. That's why I love things like if you saw it, Strike app is coming out with their payday product, where you just get your just regular W-2 employees or anyone who gets a direct deposit, they can put it into Bitcoin just immediately right off of it. And so I think for me, that's something that's really helped me start to live with a Bitcoin first mindset of trying to I try to split up my Bitcoin into a savings account and into a checking account. And I try to spend and replace inside my checking account, once a week or once a month, to just kind of keep leaning into it.
Yeah, the switch you're talking about, I think, is going to unfortunately happen due to censorship. Because we're watching Silicon Valley is all colluding with each other and coordinating these censorship attacks. And it's one thing to deplatform somebody, but it's a whole nother thing to enact financial censorship and for the payment processors to stop supporting different people, and it is really scary right now. If they could very well be if you're a team red business, we're gonna stop supporting payments because we don't want to be associated with the domestic terrorists or whatever the rhetoric looks like. And so I mean I think that's where a major switch is going to flip, and hopefully we'll be ready to help those people because it's just garbage.
Right.
And so let's talk about the Lightning Network a little bit. So my stepdad, if he's listening, he's just recently got into Bitcoin. He'll be like, I don't even understand how to do a transaction. So what are some of the easiest ways to get involved on the Lightning Network? So you talked about some apps to pay for.
So Lightning Network. So there's 2 layers of the Bitcoin network, or there's the base layer of the Bitcoin network, which everyone's pretty familiar with. That's where the blocks get added every 10 minutes. If you go to mempool.space, that's my favorite like mempool checker right now, which mempool is all the all the transactions that are waiting to get into the block and verified on the base layer. And why I like mempool.space is because it's a very visual representation of that auction to get your transaction into the block, everything. So because that is a very like secure process and takes a lot of computing power and all the ASICs and all that things, day-to-day sends and the small tips, like if you want to tip the podcast or tip whatever, 50 cents, $1, all these things, that won't work on the base layer. So now there's side chains and second layers being created. So my three favorites of side chains even right now are Lightning, RSK, and Liquid. And each of those have different, and what's going to happen is that all these different second layers are all going to have different trust models, and there's just going to be different trade-offs all over the place about it. But so for the Lightning Network, what happens is instead of when I would send a transaction over to Alex on the base chain, it would again have to go through that auction to get into the block, and then it would have to be stamped in the block. And so Alex and I would both be waiting for our block, my fee, to come up in the auction and then get stamped. Lightning Network, what happens is that me and Alex open a Lightning channel between our node, and think of it as like an abacus. And so, there's this many beads on this side and this many beads on this side. And it's basically like IOUs being sent back and forth, but better than IOUs. It's like in between, because it definitely settles. Like I cannot go and reach over to Alex's and pull the beads. He has to send them. But none of it is going, but so us paying each other back and forth doesn't settle until we decide to close the channel, or I decide to take some of it out to put it back on the base layer. And so the way that I think about it a lot is the Lightning Network is like my checking account, and the base chain is like my savings account, is how I think about it. So the easiest ways for people to get involved are the best Lightning wallets, in my opinion, are Blue Wallet, Wallet of Satoshi, and Breeze. BREEZ, no E. So yeah, Blue Wallet, Wallet of Satoshi, and Breeze. And then the easiest way to like buy Lightning Bitcoin or get your Bitcoin is through the Strike app. So search LN Strike too for that. And then also Fold, like Alex's hat. So what I love doing, here's what I love doing as far as, like I said, leaning into the Bitcoin economy. What I love doing is buying dinner over Uber Eats. So you load your Strike app and you buy an Uber Eats gift card on Fold, pay with Lightning, and then whatever change is left over inside your Strike app, you dump that to your own Wallet of Satoshi or your own Blue Wallet. So you're paying Lightning invoices out of your checking account so that you're getting used to the Lightning Network. And then you're also stacking up Lightning Bitcoin in your own wallet too, so that you're stacking and saving for the future. So that's the way that I love still stacking Bitcoin, still making number go up and making your savings go up, which is positive. But then you're also, beginning to try out gift cards. And some people kind of so are gift cards the end game? No, gift cards aren't the end game. Obviously, it'd be sick to go just straight to UberEats.com and pay with your Strike app or pay with your Lightning wallet. Totally. But what's sweet is we are seeing these middle gift card companies that are helping people start to transition to living on Bitcoin, because this is the way that you would do it if you have a fiat job. If you are already getting paid in Bitcoin and you've already switched over to that, then Fold app and others allow you to kind of live in both economies. You're still able to live in the Bitcoin circular economy, and you're able to still, shop at whatever restaurants you want.
Yeah, that's a really good explanation. And just to dumb it down real quick, so Bitcoin, the base layer is kind of like cash, and Lightning and Liquid and all these other second layers are like, banks and not that they act like banks, but they're like banks and Venmo, where you can send the cash digitally and you eventually settle in cash, because it's not in the way that our economy, globalized economy, digital economy works. It would be kind of ridiculous to bring a pallet of cash everywhere you go to pay for things, and Lightning makes that a lot more efficient and a lot better. But
Totally.
yeah, yeah,
'Cause, yeah, people will talk about like the Bitcoin is just this giant open source thing that's just going to continue sucking in big value. And so Bitcoin, the base layer, is going to be like treasuries and like US treasuries and like real estate and like these just giant things. And so don't be afraid of starting to lean into the second layer. Because it's also really, that was a big part for me of like 2020. Really, I feel really great about where Bitcoin development is. And like I said, all these, like even mentioning RSK now, RSK is not something I'm super, like I can't even explain what it is, but it, the fact that there's developers in the world coming up with all of these different things on top of Bitcoin just proves how much mind share it has in the entire world, I guess. So it's like, definitely encourage people to, like, what I'm trying to say with all that is definitely encourage people to get your hands dirty. Get your hands dirty and just play with things and try different apps, because the more comfortable you get with Bitcoin, it's just really going to pay off. Like even last year, like last year was really my first year of learning BTCPay server and running my own node and, trying out multiple Lightning wallets and, doing all those things. And it's fun, and it will definitely, it makes you realize how it opens your mind, and then you kind of go down these, like, it makes it more cosmic, like everything that Bitcoin has potential to touch and change.
yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about the Lightning Network, and I'm just at the very beginning of my learning process with it. There's a lot to learn, and I'm kind of in that similar position where I'm playing around with it and running nodes and, you know, uh, trying the different apps, and it's really exciting. But I mean, I think it's going to become an inevitability where everybody has to support Lightning. Where we're not going to be able to um, do things on the base. Like, for my entire time in Bitcoin since 2018, I'm pretty new to it, but um, all the exchanges I've used, I've always sent transactions on the base layer, but fees are going up. And,
Yep.
as the price is going up, even though according to some media, we're in a bear market right now. Um,
Dude, that's so funny. Well, and that guy, so yeah, people look up the CNN business article from like 4 days ago about, they were literally like, Bitcoin dropped, now we're in a bear market. The same journalist 4 days later said, touch 40,000 again. The same journalist. Like, it's just, that was ridiculous. But dude, I have this idea that I ping this off you with like Lightning Network and even what you kind of said about Tucson and just that area. I think a really powerful thing, maybe that's still, like, I'm still naive about like government being able to fix things and like infrastructure bureaucrats being able to fix things. But dude, something that I think would be really powerful, I think public transit needs to adopt Bitcoin Lightning. And this also goes to what you're saying of, yes, the next waves of people that are on board to Bitcoin, the whole both layers is going to get abstracted away. It's just going to it will be Bitcoin, and there will be single QR codes for Bitcoin and Lightning, and you will scan it, and your wallet it'll all obscure that all away. That's the other thing. If people are watching this and you're frustrated with Bitcoin in some way, most likely you're frustrated with the exchange you're using or the wallet that you're using. So realize that there's completely tons of options, and don't allow what other software you're using to let you color and give you a bad impression of like Bitcoin, the system, is doing. And then, dude, that's why I think, because public transit adopting like these people, like these, like, well, how do we get Bitcoin in the hands of like multiple people, right? We have to get companies paying people in Bitcoin so that because people that hold cash and live paycheck to paycheck are hurt the worst by the cancel on effect, and by money printing, ironically, are hurt the worst, because everyone that gets the money, everyone at the top levels of society that get the new money, what do? They put it into assets. And that's why we're seeing all the asset inflation, and houses are more expensive, and the stock market keeps going up, and all these things. And then the main, low income workers and just day-to-day workers, they're all in cash. and they all just sit with their low checking account balances and pay their bills and pay their rent, and then it just is what it is. It would be great to see public transit from the bottom up switch to Bitcoin Lightning, because it saves the bureaucracy, fees on credit cards, and fees on handling all the change moving around and handling all the physical cash moving around. And it saves them fees on credit cards. So no longer is Visa taking a skim off of, again, all these low income people using public transit. And it gets the better currency in the hands of the people that need it. So if you start like the hands of a minimum wage worker on public transit in any city across America, if they got to 1 million sats and were able to then be stacking, again, any like $10 a month into Bitcoin, while at the same time using Lightning on public transit, the whole system would like start to like get better from the bottom.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that as a possibility. That's a pretty crazy idea. I could see like a city like Cheyenne, Wyoming, or I don't know what their public transportation looks like because there's only like 90,000 people there. But like Miami, you know, the Miami mayor seems pretty open-minded to these ideas, and even considering using Bitcoin as a treasury asset. But
like I love trains. Like my dad used to work for the public transit up in Seattle, and I like big fan of Amtrak, big fan of Metrolink. Like I use Metrolink here, like in LA and Orange County all the time. And to be able to pay $1.75 and go to West Hollywood or go to wherever is sick. Like that's cool. I like riding Metrolink, but swiping my credit card in their big terminals to pay them $1.75 does not cash flow. Guaranteed does not cash flow. And you can talk to anybody involved in any of these agencies. Public transit does not cash flow. So they need it. And it would just be a literal, like whatever technology cost that would cost, completely worth it, because it's like, it's empowering the lives of the riders also, while making the government budget stretch farther.
yeah, I mean the whole idea kind of predicates on the assumption that the government actually cares about normal
Totally.
people. So
Totally.
I mean, what I know about Tucson is if other cities start implementing that in like 2025 or sooner, we'll probably be 10 years behind them.
Totally.
So, but yeah, I mean, it really is a cool idea. I mean, the ideas like that are really legitimate solutions that we can really start enacting to really fix the issues that we're seeing right now. I mean, Tucson public transportation is pretty brutal. I experienced it when I first moved here. You sit and wait for a bus for 15 to 30 minutes in 100+ degree weather, or it's raining really hard during the monsoon season. It's just it's pretty brutal. And what you're talking about is they're operating at major losses, because people don't think about this stuff. So like, if you go into like a gas station, that's a little bit more remote, or maybe even the city, and you see the sign that says there will be an extra fee charged on debit transactions or credit transactions under X amount, it's because of these humongous fees that are being so like a $1.75 transaction might have somewhere like a 50-cent fee. So it's really like they're getting a $1.25, and that's a huge amount of money being skimmed.
Totally. Completely. And Bitcoin fixes this. And so Bitcoin fixes this. That's why people are so excited about it and so radicalized about it. And so it's just the internet does its thing on it.
Yeah, I mean,
and then vice versa, the establishment is incentivized to not see it happen. And so I'm kind of starting to see that of like this, like for example, this recent article where the guy is like locked out of his wallet, right? that just floats around and like just scares people so much. And I'm like, dude, like, yes, that's a bummer for that guy, but that won't happen when you listen to Alex and you listen to like me and you talk to like people and you start small and you learn how to do it yourself. That won't happen to you. So don't allow, like, think about the incentives of these people that are releasing that story. Think about that. And think about how giant, like, Bitcoin, this is the first time that regular people have ever had a front seat at the table too. That's the other reason why it's a revolution. This is the first time regular people have ever had a front seat to make a lot of money. And in a way that actually frees them, and in a way that doesn't, everyone buying into Bitcoin is not a zero sum, it's not a zero sum game. That's what's awesome about it too, is that the fact that Bitcoin can protect the melting ice cube of like a billionaire venture capitalist and like my little brother delivering pizzas is a very like power to the people thing. And that's why I'm like really excited about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to break down the vested interest fighting back against something like this. So, you have the biggest companies in the world. Um, Apple's getting into payment processing with their card and Apple Pay. Google's into it. Amazon's into it. Visa, MasterCard. All the millions of payment processors out there. Like Square is probably one of the biggest ones that I see around. That's a lot of weight up against this. A lot of lobbying money, a lot of energy.
Totally. Yeah, people should listen to the Jack Mahler's episode with Preston Pish, where he talks about, again, the Strike app, because Jack does a really great job of talking about how Bitcoin is the open standard. Bitcoin is the open standard. And so PayPal and Robinhood and all like these apps that are trying to build walled garden Bitcoin, those walls are going to come down. They're going to be financially forced to take those walls down, because us, the individuals, and us, the crowd, is incentivized to continue to keep Bitcoin the open standard. And so that's that'll be really exciting to watch over the next little bit.
Yeah, I mean that whole concept of creating the wall garden is just so limited. And one of the things that's coming up that I'm pretty excited about, I don't play a whole lot of video games anymore, but is Lightning on like CS:GO, where people can have a little bit of skin in the game. I forgot which podcast I was listening to that on. It might have been Guy Swan, but I mean, you're not going to be able to take your PayPal or Robinhood fake Bitcoin and go play video games with it, or do any of this stuff.
Totally. I think then that's another reason why people should be incentivized to, again, just continue stacking sats, because every day is getting better, and being able to, and that's the other reason why you should learn how to do Lightning, because again, loading into just a random video game that you want to try and throwing in 1,000 sats or throwing in 10,000 sats, you don't want to do that on the base layer. You want to protect the base layer as like your long-term holding, all that stuff. And then learning Lightning and playing around and supporting like these people building on it is just a great way to get involved.
Yeah. And so, okay, so we're talking about a lot of really, complex topics right now that, if somebody's brand new into Bitcoin, they're going to be like, what the heck are these people talking about? So some good resources to get into. I mean, you've got YouTube and whatever. I'm on YouTube, but I would caution anybody on YouTube. There's reach out to me or reach out to people on Bitcoin Twitter. Clubhouse, that I've been loving Clubhouse. Nick Carter invited me, and
nice,
they just have these panels where you can sit and ask really cool questions. And then Brian and I are also really passionate about Bitcoin meetups, so get to a local Bitcoin meetup with Bitcoiners, and ask questions.
Completely. And like my DMs are open on Twitter. It's Brain Harrington. And definitely ask questions. Because Bitcoiners, everyone, it's just like learning anything, right? The people that have like kind of dove in and learned about it and are in, like, you forget how much you know, completely forget how much you know. And so ask questions. Love talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been reading and doing this stuff every day for like 3 years, and um, or almost 3 years, and yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy to look back at how much the space has changed in that amount of time. You know, with um, just how much more sophisticated everything's the infrastructure's gotten. You know, the higher levels of
Yeah.
discussion. You know,
Yeah.
it might have just been like when I got in, I was on YouTube listening to people talking about like their fake technical analysis of like how Bitcoin
Totally.
is gonna go to the moon like in 2019. And
Mhm.
I mean, it kind of did. It went to 14,000, then crashed
Mhm.
again. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just yeah.
Yeah. I've been there too. I've completely been there. And I still am. I love YouTube. Like I love that you're on YouTube. I love that like you take the time to do this, and that's why I love sitting down, because I just want people to know like I care a lot about like the other people on the other end of this, like watching on their computer or watching on their couch or watching on their TV or watching or whatever, because I am that. I completely am that. Like, dude, I watched Tone Vays and Jimmy Song, and like when I first read the Bitcoin Standard, like I would just YouTube Safedine and I watched every interview. And you know, that's what people that's how you learn. Like, so I super appreciate everyone that takes the time to talk about it. And like Alex said, it's great in person. It's super fun in person.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been blown away by how helpful the Bitcoin community is, because it's very, you know, it's very different than other, you know, like the world of traditional finance, and that might change in the future as it grows. But you know, a lot of people are in it for um, idealist purpose, like, you know, really
Yeah.
trying to fix problems.
It's also way different than the political world. Like I was thinking about this the other day. When's the last time some are starting to do it, and that's positive, but politicians will not get down in the comments and talk with people. Like get down and dirty in the comments, 14, 15, 16 replies deep of, hey, like what is the actual, like what are we actually talking about? And like actually talking, um, they won't do it. So, but Bitcoiners will. Bitcoiners will. And that's why, and same thing with some of these hedge fund guys. Oh, sick, dude. You're gonna say it like, oh, okay, all that's fake. Dude, it's not all fake. The fact that, again, yeah, for the last 3 years, both of us were doing this every single day and reading all these books and listening to all these podcasts and like having legitimate, again, back like 16, 17, 18 reply deep conversations about every single aspect of the Bitcoin network and the incentives and the mining and the way that everything works together and the second layers and all this stuff. None of that's fake. There's a very like proof of work in all of that too. The amount of mental energy that's been poured into this thing and banged like against the wall on this thing is real. That's completely real. And so for like Nick Carter and Alop do a good job of pointing this out of like when economists try to say like Bitcoin won't work because it doesn't meet my theory for X. I'm sorry. Like Bitcoin is already working. Bitcoin it is a thing. The network is alive and it didn't die today and it releases blocks every 10 minutes. So I'm sorry. Like that is very literally a thing. So you can take your armchair quarterbacking and take your whiteboarding and whatever you're trying to do over there away because that you're trying to contradict the reality that millions of people experience with your like theory and words, and that doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, financially, I've just come to the point where I'm so fed up with it that it just seems like flat Earth
Mm.
ideology is what
Nice.
you know, we found a telescope and figured out that the Earth isn't flat and is not the center of the universe, and you
Right.
know, and they're fighting against it. They don't want to, you know, it makes sense. They have control.
Right.
They have
Totally.
a lot of control in the fiat monetary system.
Look, I'm glad you said that about the telescope too, because so for like this is like a convoluted, buzzword like technical thing, but like Bitcoin solved the Byzantine generals problem. a very literal mathematical, like science, computer science step forward for humanity. The ability, because before this, we couldn't create a digital money because everything digital can be easily copied. When I send Alex an email, we both have a copy of the email. So that doesn't work for money. Like, so that's, so just so people understand, that's what a blockchain is. That's why when you hear this word blockchain, all of that means, like, it's the SAT verifiably moved from me to him, and it's no longer with me. That's all what that means. And so when people try to strip this word blockchain out of Bitcoin and put it in all these other corporate weird, like, bolt-on applications, none of that makes any sense. That'd be like taking a transmission out of a car and like duct taping it to a refrigerator. That's completely ridiculous. And so when you hear people say that word, and thankfully this has gotten way better, completely way better. But when you hear people try to talk about this word blockchain, or like Bitcoin won't work, but the underlying technology will, none of that makes any sense. That's all corporate whitewashing of the revolution that we started this whole podcast with. Just so people, like, that's what, so everyone is trying to hit Bitcoin, which again proves how powerful it is. If every single, corporate interest and, establishment interest in the world, is coming out of the woodwork to have an opinion about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see. I know JP Morgan's been trying to create their own digital currency that they call a blockchain or a cryptocurrency, something like that. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like. And, with the other ideas that have been kind of thrown out there by more establishment oriented companies and governments and central banks, it'll, yeah, I mean, it's funny, when I started the podcast, it was Tucson blockchain, and Bitcoin Twitter reformed me pretty quick in that regard, whereas blockchain is just kind of like snake oil.
Dude, so what I love now though is, so I agree, and that happened a lot in 2017. But what I'm super thankful for now actually is, like, I've done the whole curve on the whole thing. Now the fact that people are branded under blockchain, but they're, explaining Bitcoin, explaining freedom, and doing all that stuff, that's actually positive, because then we're just SEO'd for all the words. And another example of this is, like, I really like the Altcoin Daily, like, YouTube channel. I really appreciate those guys. And they speak so much truth and so much research into what their positions on Bitcoin and on the other stuff that they cover, that it's very good news. It is very good news. And the fact that they're explaining to people every single day that may be interested in kind of chasing down other things is positive, because people can chase it down and do the mental work and work on it yourself. Don't take just words at face value from like others. But I think it's a cool thing that Bitcoin is provably winning it all, like, before our eyes, because all these words are starting to point back to Bitcoin, regardless of what they almost like used to mean.
Yeah. I mean, it's drastically shaping the world of finance. If you look at how Robinhood or PayPal have disrupted the world of payments and finance, and just imagine that multiplied by like a billion. That's what Bitcoin is doing and will be doing, because I mean, we need to be able to transact peer to peer. Like, that's becoming very, without third party intermediaries, like, that's becoming very, very blatant, and obvious, as we're watching people, payment processors just shut people down. Bank accounts will be closed, and it can just happen arbitrarily. It could look like, I mean, in one of your videos you talked about mayor of Los Angeles, I forgot his name, Garcetti, talking about shutting people's water and power off to their houses. Like,
I'm sorry, what did you just say? Like, what? Why were those words put in that order? That doesn't make any sense. I keep saying this, and I'll think, like, I use this word crazy, and I feel like it's losing its meaning. Like, the word crazy is physically losing its meaning because I just keep using it. And I'm struggling for, I talk about this then a lot too, jumping off that like, we need new language. We completely need new language. And like, the word socialism, the word capitalism, the word like all these things, I'm ready to throw all of that out. And like, at Bitcoin they like have this shirt where it's like conservative crossed out, liberal crossed out, libertarian crossed out. And they just like, it just writes Bitcoiner. And that's very where I'm at of, no, dude, the world is different now. And we just need brand new solutions and brand new words. And because I want to see, and then slightly adopting the old paradigm, I really want to see, the like right-wing populists and left-wing populists and just anti-establishment of all flavors really unite. And I've never seen such a unifying force as Bitcoin to be able to do that in the general, everyone on the internet, like, generally wants to see this like third way, no labels, figure arise and like do this thing. And it's like, maybe no figure is coming. Maybe the figure is Bitcoin. And I want to, I'm anticipating 2021 showing that even more so, as frustration with the old world continues to just grow and grow and grow. I'm anticipating more and more people coming to that conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty incredible. I mean, it seems like things are really pushing to be more decentralized. People are moving out of the cities and, kind of rejecting the idea of like central planning and government, just because they see it's been ridiculous for a long time, but it's just like way more obvious. When it's like Walmart can be open, but you can't even eat outside at Bob's bar, or it's like
Totally
like
completely.
I just watched this insane video from the Daily Caller on the California lockdowns, and just lots of interviews with different people. And I had I get to be kind of tapped into the Tucson economy a little bit, and talk with business owners here about what they're facing. And it's pretty interesting. I mean, like the mayor, here shut down sporting events, and then implemented a curfew from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. And everybody knows it's ridiculous, the curfew is, but they don't think about like how an action like canceling sporting events impacts the hospitality industry, because like, I have a friend that's a hotel owner, and she's trying to like her best to like be compliant and like take care of her staff and like really invest in the community. And like, if all these sporting events get canceled and they just go up to Phoenix instead of Tucson, then that's just another crushing blow to her business and to the people working there. So and that's even like a small decision. That's a fraction of what we're seeing other places. But
I just keep, and look, and my thing to them, and this is what I say to mayors and city council people here in Orange County, is just, what was the point of being elected? What was your point? What was the point of being elected if that's the decision that you're making? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, what, again, back to like when I would work for these people, I'd be like, you see things that are wrong with the city and you want to change them. And it's like, what? I don't understand. Like a super opportunity to kind of be a leader in a gap of leadership arose, and you're choosing to be unhelpful. To me, that's really weird.
Well, and I think that's a really important idea. I was going to ask you earlier and just kind of got excited about other topics, but a lot of people, so like Bitcoin in particular is, when people dive in and try and understand it and try and figure out how to use it, it's oftentimes the very first time that they learn to define these things of like, what is government, what is money, these things that are very, very fundamental in our society functioning. Like, you know, it would make sense that these would be like some of the first things that get taught in school after how do you read and how do you do basic math. But they're not, you know, and so, you know, what you talked about this a little bit in other places, but how do you define government? Like, what is the role of elected officials?
Yeah. Dude, I mean, what is the role of elected officials? I think the role of elected officials is to I don't know, man. I don't know. I think I'm trying to use I'm trying to do that thing where I'm trying to use new language. I'm not trying to like because I could easily just be like the role of elected officials is to, you know, try to keep the peace and keep, you know, government out of the way of the citizens, you know, being a barrier between the bureaucracy and the like. But all of that is just fluff and buzzwords. Like to me, something a positive elected official can do is get very, very granular on where is the money going. Because the reason why government is so powerful is because they extract money from everyone else and then they make decisions. And almost at every level, you're like choosing winners and losers. And so you have to, a good elected official will, you know, find a way to stop picking winners and losers. Stop picking winners and losers and just return the money to the people. Return the money to the people, I think, is basically where we're at now. Because it's like, sweet that you're building a new gazebo for the park and you're voting on, hey, do you approve this $85,000 for the new gazebo for the park? What if we don't? What if we just don't build a gazebo? And what if we just return the money? Honestly. And it's like, okay, well, the people said they wanted a gazebo. They probably said they wanted a gazebo because they didn't know that returning the money was an option. But if you straight up gave them the option of, hey, do you want this money back or do you want this gazebo? Dude, people are gonna pick the money, dude. Look at how many people like we've completely, everyone's just like waiting for their stimulus check, waiting for this check, waiting for the check. How about just don't take it from them? Like, what if we actually don't need that? You know? And so, and again, I'm not trying to say that from like an, oh, you know, because then, well, you know, government's necessary. Like, who will build the roads? Like, I don't even want to get into that like philosophical like thing. That's not even what I'm trying to say. I'm literally trying to say you're a little small town. The roads are already built. We are where we are. We literally are where we are. I'm talking about in 2021. You just got elected. You just sat down. It's your first city council meeting. What's something positive you could do? Something positive you could do is lower fees and return the money. Like that's what you can do. And you could put Bitcoin on your balance sheet to solve your unfunded liabilities, because that's a problem. And then it all comes back down to the money, and it comes down to making tough decisions. And I think that's the best thing. And then I would just start advocating against lockdowns. These businesses have to be allowed to open up.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I appreciate about the Arizona governor, I know he's gotten a lot of heat from some people on the left, which, you know, is, you know, fine. But, you know, one of the things he's done is like, he hasn't been out there mandating as much as we've seen in other places. You know, he's done some things like, you know, they initially closed down the gyms, you know, which we now know probably wasn't the best idea. You know, limiting capacity in restaurants and stuff like that. But a lot of what he did was education, getting out there and like treating people like adults and, uh, really trying to empower them to make good decisions. And, there's no mask mandate, which the Tucson mayor is super upset about. But like everybody's wearing masks, and
Totally.
all the restaurants are asking and requiring of it. Because it's just, some people like have really strong feelings against masks and Bitcoin. I don't really care. I just don't see how it's like really like I get where the like frustration around a mandate of being told what to do is, but like for me personally to wear one, like first of all, like it feels a little bit more anonymous in the surveillance state, which is kind of
Totally.
nice. But
Mhm.
uh uh yeah, I mean I think that's cool, and I really appreciate that. And that's like a position of leadership I have a lot of respect for,
Yep.
and to see like the attacks against that, where people are just cheering on totalitarianism, is kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, your point to like people don't realize that there is another option,
Mhm.
it's pretty wild. I saw a Twitter post a while ago, where somebody was talking to elected officials and they said, a good way to look at your policies and ask if they're a good idea or not is to ask would people like follow them if there was an option to opt out. And I thought
Totally.
that was yeah, I thought that
Totally.
was incredible.
The other thing that I would say is, dude, just be a regular person. Just be a regular person. Tweet like a regular person, reply to people like a regular person. And again, of whatever stripe you are, just be a regular person and literally go on YouTube shows. Start your own YouTube show, like stream to your phone. Stop the whole just like having PR people write your press releases and do all these things and like always being like politically calculating and all that stuff. No, that doesn't work anymore. It literally doesn't. And we can see it. You can see politicians that are great at just being regular people, and they're more interesting. They're completely more interesting. At least they're like I think party as much as bad as partisanship like is in the United States, which is bad, there the people that are interesting actually do blur the lines. Like if you actually get them for a 2-hour podcast, they blur the lines.
Mhm.
Just like anybody. You talk to anybody across the whole United States for 2 hours, they'll blur the lines. And so that's would be the thing of like stop releasing sound bites and start releasing the wider thing. When you tweet the other reason, like Bitcoiners tweet for 9 hours a day, every day. There's a hive mind of Bitcoin every day, 24/7, 365. Like it's always going, always going, always going. So that feedback loop of just like solution, 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 solution is just always firing. And I'm not convinced that like that's happening in politics land. Like there's no way it just is completely bogged down in nonsense half the time instead of just solution, 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 solution.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no transparency. It's all like backroom deals, and it like Andrew Cuomo winning an Emmy pretty much sums it up. It's just a
Totally.
big performance, and yeah, I mean, there's definitely some people out there, politicians that are pretty interesting. That go and appear on podcasts, and I've traditionally leaned right. I'm Bitcoin turned me into kind of an anarchist. Um, but
Totally.
I have a lot of respect for people like Tulsi Gabbard, who goes out there and wages war, and then really like has like some integrity, or like the Justin Amashes of the world. And yeah, I like that idea of like a new uh, using different mediums to really like
Mhm.
communicate with the people, and be interested in them, because it is completely different. Like, a politician that sits around, and Andrew Yang was really interesting in the
I
oh
was literally about to say his name too. I want to hear your take too. Because so Andrew Yang, I agree. I liked him. Dude, I liked him. I tweeted about him. I like started the Twitter account for him. Like it was sick. But you watched him then kiss the ring and bow and start talking like all the other people. And now even to this day, he hasn't reversed course and now just talks like everybody else. Like he lost nothing is interesting about him anymore. He now completely sounds like everybody else. And it's crazy to watch that happen.
Yeah. I've been pretty disappointed with him, and I think his I got pretty invested in his campaign, and I, for the very first time, registered as a Democrat to vote in the primary for him, even after he dropped out.
Totally.
I think this is just, when you look at politics, it's just such a big machine, and you can't really fight it in conventional methods and go into politics and change things, because it's just, it's trying to swim upriver, and you're going to get exhausted and eventually give up. I mean, you see like everybody, they either stick by their guns and accomplish nothing, like Ron Paul. Well, he accomplished some stuff, but like in educating people, I mean, I've been very inspired by him, and have learned a lot from him. I mean, his book End the Fed, and watching somebody go and stick it to the central bankers and like Bernanke, and it's pretty incredible. I mean, he definitely started a movement, and gave a voice to a lot of people that needed it, and I really appreciate that. But like, as far as like a policy standpoint, he didn't really accomplish much. So you either don't accomplish anything, you get frustrated and get like silenced and kicked out like Tulsi, or you become a sellout like Bernie and Yang. And I'm really disappointed. I mean, I donated to his campaign, and it's probably one of the last times I'll ever do that, because I feel like I have like a real solution in Bitcoin to really like do things that are actually productive. So
feel the complete same way. And the thing I would say about Ron Paul, and the thing I would say about just Tulsi and people in general, is I think you also realize the power of like personal brands are now more influential than like the overarching brands now. So you're seeing this in media, where everyone's leaving to do their own podcast and their own Substack and their own, tweets and doing all that stuff. And so the actual, like the CNN, the Fox News, the cable television is like losing its power. And you're seeing this in political campaigns. Dude, Trump was his own personal brand. Obama was his own personal brand. Bernie Sanders is his own personal brand. Andrew Yang, was and is to a certain extent. Like AOC is her own brand. Any of these people that like we kind of know their name, and they're not just like the faceless congressional person from 46 wherever. Like they have their brand is more powerful than what the words Republican or Democrat even mean anymore. Them as a person, because we're all down for influencers. Like, dude, Instagram influencers is like, that's the thing. Like that holds power. And Twitter influencers, journalists, individual journalists, all that stuff, like that's what holds the power. And so politics, I think people realize that, well, dude, having a personal brand of being an activist and being like standing for something is almost way more important than any like policy wins or whatever, because everything is just narrative and everything is just memes and everything is just whatever. And so that's what I would be like, everyone as like an activist and like a public face should just be focused on that. And like, regardless of like, if you ever run for office or don't run for office, or if you're already in office and you lose, like all of that, you can always be building just who you are as a person in your portfolio of things you've done in your life across your entire life. And to me, that's exciting. To me, that's exciting that people can, like, I love knowing that people can pivot and do lots of different things, and like entertainment and politics and activism and everything is just all the same thing. It's all the same thing. And it's all the same, like how to win friends and influence people is like nothing about that has like really changed other than the like tools that you use to do it. So, and that's so when you interact with politicians that just have no interest in like being a regular person, or no interest in just kind of like they literally don't have a personal brand, and they don't have a nuanced opinion of anything, I'm just like, what what is the point then of what you're doing?
Yeah. I mean, it really is interesting to see these brands kind of rise up. I mean, some that come to mind are, for the progressives, people like Kyle Kalinske, and then on your typical run-of-the-mill liberal, David Pakman, and then Joe Rogan, who's just kind of like your average guy. The way that Joe Rogan shapes public opinion is just incredible. Like, he's just so full of reason. I don't agree with him on everything, and you probably shouldn't ever agree with anybody on everything, but it is cool to see that. It kind of gives me hope that there is like a voice of reason out there that isn't insane. And yeah, I talking about influencers, like seeing Adam Curry get into Bitcoin and champion podcasting 2.0, which I haven't figured out yet. But
that one's tough for me too. I haven't got it either.
Dude, Guy Swan's a good guy to talk to about that, because he's all set up, and so is Adam. If you get on the Sphinx app, and I was having issues with it. I think it might be my podcast host that was the problem, but I don't know. I'm like you. I'm very untechnical, but I'm like slowly trying to bumble my way through these things and figure them out. But yeah. Well, where are some good places that people can follow your work?
Yeah. So Twitter, Brain Harrington, and send me a DM. Let me know what you're up to. Go to ocbitcoinnetwork.com, and that's where you'll see the meetup. If you're within driving distance of anywhere in Southern California, definitely invite you out. Definitely join what's going on in Tucson and Phoenix. And then also, anyone's listening in from Las Vegas, there's a meetup there also that we can connect you with. And then also if you go to bitcoinis.com/start, I've written about like 4 apps that I think are the most easy to use, and just will kind of just create a stack for people to get involved with Bitcoin, and just kind of from 0 to 100 in like the simple, easiest to use way. So bitcoinis.com/start has those 4 apps. And Brain Harrington on Twitter. Yeah.
Are you on Mastodon yet?
No, not yet. I'm on Gab. I'm on Gab at Brain Harrington also.
Gotcha. Bitcoinhackers.org. It's the place to be right now.
Yeah. I need to work on this.
I think I saw you on what's it called? Clubhouse too.
Yeah, Clubhouse too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and having this conversation. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, dude, I love it. I'm long the Southwest United States Bitcoin citadels, and we're gonna keep working on it.
Yeah, we're gonna get Bitcoin in the hands of everybody before we run out of water. So
totally. All right, dude.
That was a really cool conversation with Brian, and it just, conversations like these just really lift my spirit. I say it a lot in the podcast that like this is food for my soul. It just gets me excited about life, because to be empowered, to be able to create change, like positive change that doesn't involve screaming at people or being violent or stuff like that, it's huge, and like a lot of people are missing this right now. They're feeling disempowered, and here you go. Here's some tools that you can really change the world with. And so I'm excited about getting Tucson Bitcoiners together at this upcoming meetup. Chris Porter, who was on the podcast with me a little bit ago for the New Year's live stream, he's going to be there and is helping me with some of the stuff. And it's just awesome. Like, it really is awesome. Like, you do not have to feel you can feel however you want, but we don't have to be just trampled upon by our elected officials anymore, and by big tech and big corporations. Like, we have the power to protect our wealth, to build new systems that they cannot censor, that they cannot shut down. And it's just awesome talking to Brian about this. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at Tucson Bitcoin at protonmail.com. And I'm also on Twitter. You can find me there at Tucson Bitcoin, or my personal account. But yeah, I mean, it's 2021 is going to be a big year. You know, we're already seeing pushbacks against Bitcoin. You know, now Bitcoin is being labeled alt-right. You know, even though the price is way above the all-time high. You know, if according to the news, we're in a bear market. You know, so like the FUD is there. But you know, there's people that really believe in it and are trying to build cool things and really create change. And you know, like we talked about in the interview, there's a lot of interest in stopping something like this because it challenges power structures. And if that's something that you're interested in, you know, Bitcoin really is the tool to do that. So hope you enjoyed this conversation and have a good one.